Welcome to Squad, the leadership and high performance podcast that aims to help you change your game through inspirational stories and insights from some of the most fascinating people around. My guest today is an athlete with more than 2 decades of competitive experience, competing with and learning from Olympic, World, European and Commonwealth champions. With high-octane motorsports driving his passions, I'm delighted to be joined by performance leader Andrew Cohen-Wray. Andrew, welcome.
Thank you.
Great.
How much do I owe you for that introduction?
Well, you already said you were slipping a score in a post, didn't you? I'm waiting for that
That's
to
it.
actually arrive. The post
That's
is on
it.
strike at the moment, it would seem. I've not received that yet, but I'm sure you're good for your word.
It's been furloughed.
I'm never going to do you justice, Andy. You and I have known you in an intro. You and I have known each other for a little while now. So, just for those that are listening, tell them about you, what you've done, and sort of what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, thanks for that, Simon. Hi, everybody. Andy Cohen-Wray. I work as a mental performance coach, a bit like sports psychology, but I didn't do the degree when I was at school or at university. Education wasn't my thing, so I've kind of relearned my trade, which is really good. Very fortunate to work in a world of different arenas, from sort of athletics, sort of working with Olympic level athletes down to Joe Jogger. I've not actually met Joe. I don't know who she is or he is, but yeah, working with grassroots through to Olympic level, and then in the motorsport world, I'm very fortunate to work with Formula One drivers all the way down to sort of go-karters and everything in between. I'm a racing driver myself. Some say I'm a bit of a tame racing driver, but I'm learning to be a bit less tame and a bit more aggressive, which is really good. And I also do business performance with my business partner, who's a Paralympian, Danny Crate, with 1404 Performance. So we go into businesses and look at how sort of individuals tick and operate, and how we bring those individuals together to create high performing teams. That's me in a nutshell, really, I guess. Don't know if I've done myself any justice, but hey hum.
That is what it is, Andy. No, that's great. Thank you for the intro. The reason why I wanted you on this is because this podcast really is about mindset, leadership, and high performance. And in the context of 1404, that's obviously what you do. In the context of working with the people that you do in a sport, particularly, and I know there's other sports that you've done, in the athletics world outside of motorsport, but where we were discussing before this about those fine margins and what it is that takes you to that level. So, what to you, Andy, does high performance mean?
Yeah, that is a really good question, isn't it, Simon? And you only sprung that on me 5 minutes ago.
Apologies.
So it's having that brain space to think about that while I'm trying to think of an introduction as well, and try not to swear at the same time is really challenging. But high performance is all relative, isn't it? It's relative to the individual, I believe. Probably going to get shot down, but I think it's all relative. It's high performance is doing what you do to the best of your ability, kind of with what you've got, I believe, and that's, like I say, it's all relative. So what is high performance could be seen or deemed as elite level sport, or Olympics, Formula One, Premiership football, that kind of stuff. But I think everybody's a performer in their own right. We all perform day to day, and it's around doing that kind of better than we did yesterday, and working towards doing it better tomorrow. So I think as long as you're constantly improving, reviewing, and working towards something, then I kind of believe you're a high performer. Whether that's doing a couch to 5K, it's all relative to us. We're not all going to be Olympic, world record holders or something like that. So it's kind of it's doing what you can with what you've got, and doing it well and better than yesterday, I believe.
Yeah, and I wouldn't disagree, and it is relative. It's very subjective also. But I think 2020 particularly, and actually I think prior to 2020, but 2020 has accentuated this feeling, I feel, that people feel like they're constantly underachieving. And this is, of course, amplified now with social media, and the way that people portray themselves. Many people portray themselves as, the perfect lives. But what is it that through 1404 you're learning and that you're delivering that makes a difference to those people's to people's high performance and their ability to take what they do to the next level, perhaps, or just be better at what they do? How does that look?
Yeah, it looks very different today to what it did a year and a half ago, massively. And to be fair, it's been really hard work because the kind of the Danny and Andy show, or DNA as we call ourselves, so like the DNA of high performance, Danny and Andy, works best in a room, and the magic really happens when we're stood side by side together, work in a room, and that's where the real magic and power happens. So not having that ability at the moment is really, really hard work. And we've done some stuff during lockdowns where we could get together and deliver, and it works really well. But even doing it on Zoom or Teams is a real struggle. We're really missing that human connection and that real kind of live feedback that we would get. And it's hard to tell if your jokes are landing or if it's you're just not getting that feedback. It's really, really hard work. So it's changed massively, but and like I say, we're all missing that human connection. We're all missing those kind of conversations around the coffee shop or around the water cooler and stuff like that. And it's working on that. We're losing a lot of creativity, we're finding, in businesses, and a lot of probably of those business deals aren't being done so much because it's normally we'd have a day at work, we go down the pub after work, have a beer, and that's when the magic happens. A lot of these sort of big deals are done. So it's really, really strange times, but us, it's all about keeping people inspired. Having something to work towards is massively important. You've got to have a goal, you've got to have a vision, you've got to have a focus, no matter how small or big that is. You've got to be constantly reviewing those and learning from it. But it is just really genuinely strange times. We were doing sessions the other week where we're all working from home as such, but you've got some people are in the office, some people aren't in the office, and it's just really really weird. I hate it, to be fair. I'm such a kind of people person. I miss people, which is weird, but it's hard work. But we just got to adapt and kind of crack on and do what we can with what we've got. So it's hard for everybody. It's not just us. And that's it. We've had to change our mindset towards it, the way in which we work. We've had to adapt and thrive and survive, and we're doing it. But it's not easy. Not every day we're upbeat, and it's hard. We spend a lot more time on our own, so our internal dialogue is running away with us, because for some people that's the only people we get to talk to now. So if you're not in a good space yourself, and you're going to have a world of negativity running around your head, and those little niggles that normally would just be little niggles and you brush them off kind of manifest into much bigger things, which makes it hard work. And then you've got to be upbeat and bouncy when you're doing things like this, and it's really hard work. I get it completely, but tough times. It's hopefully it's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I think what you've really brilliantly done there, and it's kind of encapsulate, I suppose, what many people are feeling, right? So that feeling that you've had to adapt and change the mindset, coming from the position that you're in, which was high performance, which we'll tap into much more later on in terms of the people that you work with, and the achievements that you've accomplished. When you work with these with people that you're through 1404 performance, what is it that you're telling them they should be doing in order to change their own mindset? Because what you've just described there in terms of people working from home, it's all very disparate. It's not front of house or face to face, which people listen to this podcast mainly, I would suggest, are that type of individual, and the DNA, to use your phrase, also is for people to be like that. What are you advising? How do you change your mindset to allow and provision really the best performance possible, particularly in the current climate?
Yeah, good. Yeah, so a really good question, Sam. So we have a high performance model which we use. I'll very quickly run you through that. It's quite simple, but yeah, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps on this model. It's really it's quite simple, and we use the model in 2 ways. So if people are coming to us with a problem, we sort of start at one end and work our way back. Use it as a bit of a toolbox and a manual of problem finding, problem solving. And then when we're creating high performance, we start at the very beginning. And work our way back to the other end as such. So it goes both ways, which is really cool. And it's something that, having been around high performers probably most of my career, having been a high performer in my own right in various roles and things like that, it's just taking all of that learning, knowledge and understanding, then put it into a few 6, 7 words that people can kind of tap into and get those little sections right that ultimately will bring high performance. So when we start on the, I say start on the left, I don't know why I put my hand up, nobody can see me, but we start on the left. So we start with language, and then we have attitude, then we have behaviors. So starting at language, we kind of have three types of language, I guess, and I don't mean rude and swearing and that kind of stuff. You've kind of got your internal language, your internal dialogue, how you talk to yourself. We've got how we talk to each other, so kind of how we're communicating now. And then you've also got body language. So you've got those 3 types of language. Now, your internal language is what drives your attitude, which is your kind of mindset towards, or your thoughts and feelings towards something or somebody. And then that attitude is then what drives your behaviors. And that's kind of what you're thinking in here kind of is expressed through a behavior, sort of a reaction to somebody or something. So then that goes into, so language, attitude, behavior. It's got to be positive as much as you can be. We're not expecting you to be positive polys 24/7, because that's exhausting. You do need some downtime, and it's okay not to be okay. I'm not bouncing like Tigger on speed every day of the week. I have my bad days, I have my good days. I'll have a bad half an hour, I'll have an old man nap, and I'll recover and I'll get going again. So yeah, I can't expect anybody to be absolutely driving at 300 miles an hour all the time. You're going to crash. So you do need to slow down a little bit and just recover, recoup. So yeah, language, attitude, behavior, positive as much as we can be. And then we get into culture and environment, because the kind of language, attitude, behavior, kind of individual bits, if that makes sense. That's the individual. Then those individuals come together at work, at play, as a team, as a group, and that kind of affects your culture and environment. We've probably all heard of mood hoovers. We get a lot of them in the corporate world. I'm sure there's other names. So if somebody, you've had a really good weekend, and then the other individual comes in and their goldfish has passed away and they're feeling a bit down and sad, or they've had to paint the fence, or they've, whatever's going on in their world, and they kind of bring that to the party at work, and you're just like, oh, here we go. But then your kind of attitude and mindset towards the negative Nelly is like, oh, here they come again. What's it going to be? What's the trauma today? And that affects your kind of your environment and your culture that you're working in. Then that ultimately then is the next step is performance. So performance, we look at 2 ways: mental performance, physical performance. They're kind of fairly self-explanatory. And then after your performance is your results. So kind of if you get your language, attitude, behavior right, that will drive the positive. If that's positive, that will drive the right culture and environment. And surrounding yourself with positive people who've got the same attitude and mindset, things like that. It's good for your culture environment. That drives performance, then you get results. So then going the other way, if we get somebody, business say to us that our team's not performing, we're not getting results, we go, right, is it a mental thing? Is it a physical thing? Is it the culture environment? And is it the individual's attitudes, behaviors, mindsets and stuff like that that's going on? So that's kind of how that works. So going back to your question, which I hope I remember, is sort of how do we kind of get this stuff going? We literally go back to the basics of how we talk to ourselves, because that's where it all starts. That's where the seed's sown. So kind of getting it right inside your own head is then what's going to drive the right attitude and mindset towards what you've got going on in the world. So kind of getting that internal dialogue right is what's going to drive the right attitude and mindset, and then your behaviors that you're then going to take to work or play or school or whatever that is. So yeah, in kind of answer to that, it's getting the kind of that verbal internal dialogue right inside your own head to make sure it's positive and you've got something to look forward to. You're driving the right attitudes, really. if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And I think there's two things there, Andy, that I want to tap into if I can. And the first one, and quite obviously, I suppose, because it's very literal in the world in which you primarily exist, is the speed element. And it's become very apparent to me in people that I speak with, and books that I read, and people that I listen to, that there's never been a time that's more sort of obviously about, in leadership terms, about the speed in which you lead, or at which you lead, and how you're able to bring people with you as a leader, and how if you're running at the or driving at the wrong speed, you can lose people also. The period of reflection that 2020 has given many people is allowing them to sit back and think about how they do things. And I think a lot of the reason why people find the high performance side so tricky is perhaps they're running or driving or performing at that wrong speed, and subsequently you're feeling like you might never get to that point because you're always underachieving, if that makes sense. Is that something that you see in the people that you work with, literally your car drivers, but also in athletics, other high performance, and people that you work with?
Yes, it's interesting that, because people think going fast is good. People think if you're a high performer, you go everywhere flat out, and that's not the case. There's a really good video on YouTube of George Russell, the Williams Formula One driver, doing a kind of a live running commentary while he's doing a fast lap, and I think it was out in Russia, if I remember rightly. But he's basically talking you through his drive, which he's doing absolutely flat out. So he's doing well over 300 kilometers an hour, a couple of 100 miles an hour. And because of the kind of the mental bandwidth he's got, he's actually going really slowly in his head, which has given him time. So even though he's actually moving fast, in his head it's really slow, which is then giving him time because of the planning and preparation, all the training, all the sim work and stuff like that. They're so well prepared. They know where they're going, they know what they're doing. So even though the car's going flat out, actually inside they're going really, really slow, which gives them time. So, and to give you an example of that, he turns onto the straight, and the straight's quite long, but he's looking up at a red Ferrari flag about 400-500 meters away to look at the direction that the flag's flying, and also if it's kind of limp or it's it's flying vigorously, to give him an indication of what the wind's like when he gets to that next left-hand corner. And and I sat there, I was just like, how is he doing that? For me, I'd be hanging on to the thing going, Jesus Christ, this is really fast. But it's so slow that he's able to take in all that information and data. And I say he's looking at how hard the flag's flying and which direction he's flying, so he knows if he can brake a bit later or a bit earlier, because of the wind is going to make a difference to aerodynamics. And you're kind of like, that's really impressive. So kind of going fast isn't the be all and end all. It's kind of when you're in that zone. And Michael Schumacher spoke about it when he raced at Monaco. He said when he, I think maybe he won at Monaco, and he was like, everything just slowed right down. And I was just going through, it was just so easy. It was coming. I knew where I was going, what I was doing. It was just like slow motion. So kind of going fast isn't really the way forward. If you're going flat out, that kind of suggests that things aren't probably going as well as they should be. Either haven't got enough planning or preparation, or there's other stuff going on. I guess stresses, anxiety, variables being thrown into it all. So yeah, I think going fast isn't the way forward. It's kind of training, preparation, planning helps slow you down. You can take in more data, more information then, and then go longer, faster, quicker, I guess.
So I'm going to try and use an analogy here, because your one was brilliant, right? So I'm going to try and use one which I use a lot, see if it makes sense. There are films, right? So in a film scenario, you've got somebody who's walking down the street, something's occurred to him, right? He or she, they've thought about something, because and it's probably triggered by trauma, right? And they stop in the middle of the road, they stop, and they are motionless, but everything around them is whizzing past. The cars are whizzing past, and people walking past them very quickly. In the sky, there might be a helicopters running around. So the world is literally moving around them, but they're fixed. and whatever it is that's triggered their mind has got them thinking about whatever it is they're thinking about. They have stopped. They are observing what's going on whilst the whole world is rushing around them. How do you get yourself in that mental position where you have just stopped, and that million miles an hour that you've been working at for whatever reason it is, and in, you know, roles which are required permanently to be, you know, incessantly based around sales, which in recruitment particularly is, or you know, genuinely there is a need for speed. How do you get yourself in that? What allows you to stop? Because if it's your DNA to continue moving at that speed, it's quite a struggle, isn't it, to get yourself to go, do you know what? I am actually going to stop. I am going to look around. I am going to watch everybody go around me and not be afraid that I'm going at a different pace. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, when you talk about the trauma bit, there's we talk about the kind of the amygdala and the old part of the brain and the fight, flight, and freeze kind of processes. So sometimes when there is a trauma, we do freeze as part of that, and that's kind of when when you sometimes you're not paying attention, you step out in front of a bus and you're just like, oh, and you're like, oh, but everything's still carried around, and you've got that kind of that matrix moment where you're just like, you're trying to like stop the bus. So yeah, so that kind of triggers through trauma, but that's obviously not what you don't want to be in a space at work where you've got that firing off, because it's actually quite exhausting. It's quite, if you've got your brain firing off and it wants to be fighting or running away all the time or freezing, that takes a lot of kind of psychological energy. So you don't want to be in that space, but it's slowing yourself down to go faster. You've got to be, again, it all comes down to planning and preparation. You've got to know where you're going, what you're doing, how you're going to get there. And then once you've got that all in place, that then kind of gives you that mental bandwidth to then kind of slow down a little bit, observe, and then take in more data and information to then move forward. So yeah, like I say, going flat out everywhere is not good. You're going to crash. That's inevitable, because you're going to come to a corner or a junction at work, at business, and whatever, where you're not going to stop, and you're going to hit a brick wall. And there's a lot of stuff around burnout these days, but it is just running flat out everywhere. You're going to run out of energy. You're going to run out of something, and you're going to hit a brick wall, and it's not going to be pretty. So kind of doing, again, it comes down to planning and preparation. It's that's key to everything. So, and surrounding yourself with good people as well. Lewis Hamilton isn't it's not, as much as it feels like the Lewis Hamilton show, but there's hundreds and hundreds of people and thousands back at the office, at the factory, that are all there doing a particular role, a particular job, to make sure he can go round as quick as he can. So kind of surrounding yourself with good people who can, take on some of that work or support you with some of that work is massively important. And whether you need to offload on those people as well, that's important. Talk about what's going on. Communication is key in that role. Talking is good about everything: mental health, work, life, everything. The more talking we do, I think the better the world will be. So yeah, it's just going flat out isn't the answer, but planning and preparation is key to performance.
Well, you've absolutely and perfectly segued into what was going to be my next thought. So you're either reading my mind or you knew what was coming. Let's let's not make this the Lewis Hamilton show, but you can't really have a session like this without mentioning him. Newly appointed Knight of the Realm as well. Obviously, the surrounding yourself with the right people, I think, is absolutely crucial. And I think, again, there's nothing. It's not groundbreaking news that should be the case, but I do think as leaders, there is it is an expectation to a certain extent. I think a self-imposed expectation that maybe you should be able to, you can do everything yourself. But as you say, Lewis Hamilton wouldn't be the world record breaking, motor F1 driver that he is now without that support in the background. The people building the cars, the people watching the laps, the people talking to him in his earpiece. Now, significantly more than I do about that, obviously. But in terms of building yourself a support network, again, this is slightly subjective, so it's quite a tricky question, I suppose. But how do people do that? What is it they should be looking for? Are there traits that they need to, in all instances, go and seek from other people that allow them to fulfill their own potential?
Yeah, another good question. So it's kind of, as much as we won't talk about Lewis, but he's not an overnight success. He's been racing for 30, I don't even know how old he is. That's how interested I am in Lewis. He's got to be, what is he, 34, 35? He's been racing for 30 years. He's been in the business longer than I've been in business. And that takes, it takes a long time to get the right people around you. And that's through, I guess, a bit of trial and error. But, the more we're aware of how people tick and operate, and it's something Danny and I do. First thing we do with people we work with is understand how they take in information, how they take in data on a sensory level, so we can find that balance of people that hear, see, feel, things like that. So getting that right does take time. You've got to build those relationships. You can't just go, right, I'm going to take Dave, Johnny, Trevor, Karen, Tracy, and put them all together and the magic happens. You've got to find the fit, but they've also got to be good at their job. Obviously, they've got to be the best in the business at their job. And then you kind of get into kind of friendships and relationships. And we have this ding dong quite regularly within businesses, and people think they have a friendship at work. So I could be working with you, and the thing with the friendship is that you both have to mutually like each other 50%, and it's actually, that's not the case. We go to work and there's people we just don't like, and it's okay. And we had this conversation recently, and this lady was like, yes, but they're my friends. And I'm like, no, they don't like you. They're just, you're in a working relationship. That's what it
Brutal.
is. It's brutal. Yeah, it's true. But you don't have to, you don't necessarily have to get on. You've just got to understand how people tick and operate and how you can work alongside that person. You don't have to know what their Aunt Nellie's up to at the weekend. You've just got to know that they're the best at what they do and how to work and deal with them. But that comes with time, building relationships. It's not an overnight thing. Usain Bolt, he's not an overnight success. He's been racing 20 odd years. It's just, he wins the right races on the right day at the right time. That's all it is. That's the magic to success. That's the magic of winning. He's lost more races than he's ever won, but he just happens to win the biggest race on the planet in the fastest time ever. It's not rocket science.
No, and I
But again,
think
that comes with training, planning, preparation.
yeah, no, well, and you're right. And if we're looking at sporting sort of analogies and examples, probably of one of the best teams ever, and to have produced success in the way that you've just described it, there is probably the class of what, 92 was it, Man United. And you look at the team that was full of Beckham and the Nevilles and Roy Keane and all of those kind of guys, and barely any of them speak to each other anymore. But it was all about working alongside each other for a common goal, and working towards that purpose. And if they didn't speak with each other at the end of the game, certainly Sir Alex Ferguson didn't care. And they were bought into the process of, yeah, we might not like each other. Now, some of them clearly do. The Beckham and the Nevilles, and Nicky Butt and Scholes, they've gone on to do other things together. But in the main, you're right. It's not necessarily about building friendships. It's about working with people who suit your needs. They might, Cantona, for example, was only able to do what he did because he had people working behind him who did all the dirty work. And it just allowed him all that time to go and do what he subsequently went and did. And that's how it needs to be looked, whether you look at it from a football point of view, or rugby, or cricket, or whatever. That's a great way to look at teamwork and surrounding yourself with your peers, but that complement what you do.
Absolutely. Yeah, you just need to be surrounded by the right people to do the right job and deliver the best performance on the right day. That's what it is. We done some stuff at McLaren with the IndyCar project with Fernando Alonso, and you've got the Americans across the pond, you've got our guys over here, and it's how we bring them all together for the purpose of getting him round. Well, he didn't get round because of a car problem, but how to get him round, 500 laps. That's it. That's the common goal, is getting that car around 500 laps as quick as we can. And it's how we bring all those right people, even though we're not in the same room, even in the same country, on the same continent. And that's kind of the magic of what we do. It's bringing those people together for the benefit of somebody to drive around in a circle pretty fast. And like you say, you don't have to like them. They bring their own cultures, they bring their own attitudes and things, and we just have to learn to get on with them and work with it rather than fight it, and just put all our energy into that goal, not the kind of the relationship stuff, if that makes sense, or the friendship stuff.
Yeah,
They're a pain in
absolutely.
the backside. They're a pain in the backside.
So I want to tap into now. So what makes a difference that you've seen in athletics, in which you've achieved elite medal winning standard yourself, and driving, both of which I would look at and really put fine margins as the underpinning element of what defines somebody from being really good and elite that you've seen. Is there like a common trait, and one thing that, unless you have this, you'll never get from being really good to elite? Or do you think it's a combination? If it is a combination, what, generally speaking, might those sort of combinations look like?
Yeah, it's good. I think the sport's irrelevant, really. I always talk about what I do. I just talk about human being performance. Certainly from a psychology point of view, the sport is irrelevant. I can't play football for toffee, but I can make a football team play better, if that makes sense, or I can bring them together as a team better. Same as rugby. I can't play rugby. I can't play most sports, to be fair, but I don't need to know that. I do a lot of work with golfers. I can't play golf for toffee, but I can make them play better. So again, it's all down to understanding the human being. But I think the difference between being good and very good, quite simply, is who wants it the most. It's just, if it's coming down to you and me in a sprint finish, it's mine all day long. I kind of look at it, I go back to my firearms days in the police, and we kind of have it's like shot or be shot. So I want to go home to my family. If you point a gun at me, it's game over, I'm afraid. I want it more. So it does come down to winning is pretty much who wants it the most, and who's prepared to work harder, or who's prepared to work the hardest to get it the most. And it's just that, it's not giving up, it's that resilience, it's that it's those kinds of things that come into it. But yeah, the difference between being good and great is who wants it the most and who's prepared to work the hardest to get there, quite simply.
Yeah, and the hard work underpins, has to underpin any significant
Yeah,
success. The bit that
it's
I'd
planning
like
and
to,
preparation. Yeah.
yeah, no, we're back to planning preparation. Actually, now resilience is a really key word at the moment. It's being bandied about a lot. In many instances, it's almost becoming a badge of honor. If you've survived 2020 and your business is still here, you're still here, your family's still okay, and you've battled against all the odds, and so subsequently you are resilient. How do you think that is impacting on people's mental health? And this isn't a podcast about mental health particularly, but there has to be something, surely, where that resilience, and it goes down to metaphorically, when you mentioned about the crashing. How are you seeing that? Is that something that is now, as a result of last year, potentially a build up to it, prior to it anyway, manifesting itself in people considering that they're being resilient, but actually are just breaking themselves down? And if that is the case, how do you prevent that?
Yes, kind of resilience is all about I kind of use a ruler analogy, really. Resilience is about how much you can be flexed and then kind of bounce back, if that makes sense. So if you can get a plastic ruler and
Yeah.
you want to be bent as much as you can, and then you go back to normal, or whatever normal is. And obviously if you bend it too much, it'll snap and you break. So you've got to find that fine line of just bending and kind of flexing back. And it's kind of resilience is that response to that stress and that trauma and things like that. So it's a real difficult one. Are we really? It's hard, I get it, and for some people it's harder than others. I get that. Every individual's kind of, but all we're being asked to do is work from home. All we're being asked to do is stay at home. And it's kind of, and yes, I get we're missing that human contact, and we're a little bit more restricted, but it's not like we're in a cell 365 days with 1 hours, it's a very different lockdown to that of a prison. And it's things like that. There's a lot of variables that are affecting people. I completely get that. And mental health is very different because a lot of people aren't comfortable in their own heads, so they will struggle. And suicide is through the roof at the moment, because people are struggling. It's because we can't see a way out. We can't see what we don't know. It's all these unknown variables that we just can't get our heads around. So that's why we're struggling really with that. And certainly with the COVID situation, it's just there's no end in sight. It's schools may go back in February, but they might not, and we can't, because there's no finish line. We've got nothing to work towards, and we need that kind of as performance, as high performance. We need that. We need something to focus on and to get our teeth into, and we need to tick off the days and ready to get back out again. So that's really hard. So yeah, mental health is rife at the moment, and because we're not seeing people, we're missing a lot of the, I know I can see you on screen at the moment, but we can't really see the body language that's going on that tells us if we're really okay or we're not okay. And so we're missing a lot, and we're missing a lot of those kind of triggers, I guess, that you would ordinarily see if you were walking around the office. You'd see somebody and go, oh, Tracy doesn't quite look herself. Is that something, are you okay? And we can put a front on because we only see each other for an hour. So I can put on a brave face for an hour. Yeah, I'm really good, Simon. I'm buzzing. It's all good. But it's actually a complete mine fest out there. You got to go back, and there's the kids, the dogs, and everything. You're like, it's a proper mess, and I get that. But it's on a level of resilience and trauma. It's kind of, is it really? And again, I'm probably going to get shot down, but is it really that bad? I don't know. For some people, yes. For others, not. There's a lot of people that have got relatives and stuff that are dying, and I completely sympathise with that and empathise with that. That's real stuff going on. I get that. But for the most of us that are all okay and healthy, it's we've just been asked to stay at home. That's fine. I can do that. I'm quite happy in my own head, but others aren't, and I get that. And it's very, very difficult. Very, very difficult.
So looking at it, Andy, from a high performance, coming at it from a high performance angle, how has the experience of 2020 left you feeling?
A bit battered, to be fair. I'll be brutally honest. I'm not. I've got my own kind of mental health stuff going on, and I know we're going to talk about that much later on. But yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy completely. It's been really hard because again, we've had kind of lots of ups and downs. We got really, we had the first lockdown. We're like, right, we can deal with that. We're homeschooling. It's fine. And then it's like, right, we're now back out again. And you're like, right, okay, we've got a bit of normality again, and it's kind of, me and Danny are back in a room together. We're delivering. We're starting to get things going again. And suddenly you get another kick in the whatsits, and you're like, oh, ouch, that hurt. And you kind of like, so you sit down, readjust again. We get all the online stuff going up and running again. And then you're like, right, okay, we're going again now. And then you're like, you get going again, and it's like, bang, another kick in the, you're like, oh, for crying out loud. And it's been hard. It's hard taking a kick in. It really is. I know it's a kind of a mental, metaphorical kick in, but it is. It does feel like you're getting a kick in, and it is really, really hard work because you're like, when are we going to be able to get back to, working with people and doing stuff? And when can we do this? Oh, Danny's phoning me. Sorry about that. And it's things like, when are we going to get back to? We don't know, and that's really hard to stay focused, motivated, and things like that. And it's hard to inspire others when you don't know yourself. It's really, really hard. So yeah, it has been really tough, and I miss the Danny and Andy show. I miss kind of standing in a room with him and doing what we do best. That's been hard. But it is what it is. We talk about control the controllables. There's nothing we could do about it. So we've got to kind of control what we can control and not worry about what we can't control. So we kind of, as a high performer, we go, well, we can't do that, so let's focus on this. And we created a whole online education program for schools and for teachers, and we wouldn't have had the time to do that ordinarily. So it's given us a lot of time to do a lot of different things where we can benefit other sectors and different people, which is awesome. We were doing Friday lunch clubs. We would have a virtual lunch club every Friday, and we had random people all around the world just coming in for an hour and just chatting rubbish really, but it was great. We just, and some really good business deals have been done out of those, and great networking. It was just getting people together and just having a chat and just, let's have lunch. What have you got for lunch today? Like, here's my tuna salad, and somebody in Marbella's got their paella, and somebody in America's got whatever, and it's really cool. But again, that's stuff we wouldn't have done. So there's been lots of good learning, and we've been pushed quite hard, and we've had to push each other quite hard because we're all, in a tough place. But there's lots of learnings which are positive. So it's kind of taking those and getting ready for when we can get back to normal, whatever that's going to look like. I don't know. Am I going to wear a face mask for the rest of my life?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, who knows where that's concerned. I think, you mentioned about your own sort of mental health journey. I think it'd be quite a pertinent and poignant time now to sort of succinctly go through that. Could you tell us, Annie, like what the achievements that you've personally made are quite significant, in the fields that you've operated in. So, and understanding exactly what it is that you've achieved would be fantastic. And after that, you could look at it and you could think, well, that surely can only be positive. So could you just let us know what it is that you've done, and then subsequently what it is that then started that mental health slide, if you like, and subsequently what you've done to address it?
Yeah, so there's a world of stuff there, isn't it? Yeah, so we've got another 3 hours of talking now. So good. I'll do it as
Not
short
quite,
as I can.
but yeah,
Not quite, but yeah, I'll crack on as quick as we can. Yeah. So so I've competed 28 years. Raced around the world, which is good. Picked up national titles along the way. More county titles, sort of cross country, 800, 1500 than I care to think about. So, as an athlete, I was good. I wasn't great, but I had to work for a living at the same time. I was quite on that cusp of being sort of full time and things like that. I wasn't quite there because, like I say, I had to start working for a living, and I joined the police and things like that, and trying to hold down, 100, 120 miles a week whilst working. Doing all of that is just somebody else is phoning me. Sorry. Oh Christ. Away. So yeah, doing all of those things is just really, really hard work. Whilst trying to be physically and mentally in a space to do everything is just really, really hard work. So I kind of never really fulfilled my athletics ambitions, I guess. But as an old man later on in life, when I started doing masters athletics, I then got to travel again around the world and win some good races, pick up some good titles, and it was all good. Driving wise, I've driven some very, very fast cars and racing cars, and there's a couple of trophies behind me which nobody can see that I picked up this season in my first. You can see that. Yeah, I've got my cap and the champagne. It's all good. So I can drive well, I can race well. Kind of everything I've done, I guess, has been at a higher level. So when I was in the police, I was doing firearm stuff, I was doing raw protection stuff. So again, you're operating at the kind of the top end. I was driving the fastest cars the force had. I was working at Heathrow doing VIP royalty driving. So I was moving the most important people in the world around the airfield when they visited the UK, driving kings, queens, princesses, Dalai Lama, celebrities. I can name drop, but I won't. But your Beckhams, your Dalai Lama, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger's. Yes, so it's really cool people. You're meeting some really, really cool people, and it was the job to have really at Heathrow, because you are meeting the best people in the world, which is really cool. I was working for a Porsche specialist, so I was driving really nice cars, really fast cars and things like that, which is all good. But going on, it's not all rosy. Going on to the mental health stuff, through my police time, I saw a lot of horrific stuff, worked on a lot of sort of horrific jobs and things like that. And nearly 10 years of service, I saw 180 odd bodies, and that had an impact on my mental health. I was on a stereotypical male team where it was fast cars, big guns, tattoos, were all sort of beer, drink, cars, were women. It was great, but we couldn't sustain that, and I didn't have the ability to talk about the kind of the crap I was seeing and dealing with, whether that was murders, suicides, train crashes, worked on Potter's Bar train crash, the Soham murders, all these kinds of things, lots of horrific stuff that you've got to put somewhere, and I didn't put it somewhere very well. In 2007, I ended up with something called dissociative amnesia. So my brain dissociated from all the bad stuff by forgetting, but it didn't take just the bad stuff, it took everything. So it kind of wiped 30 years of memory. So I was 30 years old and I didn't have a clue. Don't remember growing up, don't remember going to school, don't remember work, family, kids, the whole lot gone. Done. And then for 2 years I lived with a 24, 48-hour memory, because it was kind of the capacity to retain stuff just wasn't there. So I would have stuff for a short time. So I would talk to you today, Simon, and then 2 days time I wouldn't have a clue. I wouldn't remember doing this, I wouldn't see you, and things like that. I could walk past you in the street, wouldn't have a clue. And then for 2 years, that was a bit like 50 First Dates, the movie. And then for 2 years, I lived like that, which was really, really hard, very, very challenging. You're always on edge because you're always worried you're going to have a good day and you're going to forget it. You might have a good day and you're glad to forget it, but there are some positives. I don't remember the mother-in-law. It's all good. So you take the rough with the smooth as such, but I didn't have any choice. That was the hard bit. And then, so from 2009 to today, I'm able to retain memory. So I'm kind of 43 years old with 11, 12 years of memory as such, which means I'm quite empty in here because I don't have all the baggage and rubbish that the rest of you guys carry around from childhood, first girlfriends, first dates, stuff like that. So it's not all bad. And then, 2012, my brother took his life through suicide, my younger brother, Matt. So I lost him, which was hard. It's hard losing somebody like that anyway. But for me, I'd only known him for 3 years, because from 2009 to 12, I was retaining memory. So losing somebody that you but don't really know, and there's 30 odd years of memory and history there, but you don't have it, is really hard. And 2 years later, 2015, 3 years later, 2015, my mum literally just drunk herself to death, pretty much. She didn't really deal with my brother's death very well. Just drunk, and that was it, really. So she passed away, which was hard. I ended up having a stroke in the middle of all that. We're going through a big change process at Heathrow. It wasn't handled very well. I really struggled. I just couldn't, my brain was just complete chaos. It was all just spaghetti, and I just couldn't make sense of a lot of things. And then they chucked in another variable that was impacting my life, and I just couldn't cope. And my brain just again, it's like a coping mechanism, just shut itself down in the form of a stroke. It's just like a sit down, Andy, and just sort your stuff out, really. But through those, I've got a really good every cloud has a silver lining slide when I'm doing my presentation. It's through those traumas that, because of my stroke, I then couldn't do the driving. So at Heathrow, they put me onto a continuous improvement team. So I then learned a load of science around processing improvement, human being performance, psychology, behaviors, how people tick and operate, and all of this kind of stuff. And that's where I did all my learning. And I was like, I should be doing this in the athletics world. This is really cool. This is sports psychology. And so I put myself on another couple of courses, got myself, really qualified, and then went, thank you very much, Heathrow. Gave them 2 fingers. I'm off. Set myself up in business, started working with athletes because I was in that world. Chance race up in Woking one day. Met a couple of young lads and their parents who was, the kids were struggling with their heads. Started working with those. Turns out one of their dads is a director at McLaren. Can you work with racing drivers? I'm like, yeah, I can do that. Don't know much about it, but yeah, I'll have a go. And started working with a Formula 2 driver, and it's, everything's just gone on from there. Then met Danny, we used to race each other many years ago. We've sort of got back in touch. Started, Danny's like, well, I do this, and I'm like, I do this. We brought the two together, and we're now, so we're now doing some amazing stuff. I'm out racing a car, which I love. It's all good, but it's you've got to go through some of that bad stuff to kind of get to where you are today, if that makes sense. So it's not been easy, don't get me wrong. I had a full head of hair 20 years ago, but would I do it again?
So someone told you?
Yeah, so somebody told me. Yeah, that's the thing, I don't remember. It's really bloody hard work, but I've got some photos somewhere. But so yes, it's not been the easiest, but
no, I mean, I feel that in many ways, the way that we've come to this moment of what has made, incredibly inspiring. It's perhaps a little bit topsy-turvy the way we've got it in terms of the podcast situation, but it just completely underpins then what you've subsequently done, even more amazingly. So thank you for sharing that. And it leads me on to a question that I like to ask. Of so what are you grateful for, Andy?
I'm grateful to wake up in the morning because I've got an opportunity to make a difference to people. I know what it's like to have lost everything, losing 30 years of memory, not remembering your mum, your dad, your wife, your kids, all those kinds of things, your friends, family, relatives, the whole lot. So I've kind of been at a very, 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 very dark place where it's just me and the world, and I don't know anybody, I don't remember anybody, and it's like, don't know if I like this. Then having lost my brother and mum, two key figures in my life is really hard. So to be able to get up in the morning and do what I do and have a positive impact on people's mental health, on their performance, is amazing. It's, I wouldn't say it's a gift, but it's nice to be able to do, and it's great to see an improvement in performance in people's mental health. And, just by talking about, even just talking about my mental health stuff, I get some really cool messages every now and again where people are like, I was in a really dark place, I was thinking about taking my own life, and I've seen your stuff, and it's like, it's made me think about it. And I'm like, wow, blown away. So I've always said, if the purpose of me talking is just stop one person taking their own life, and that for me is amazing. So to have multiple messages over the years is just incredible, because I know the impact it has on, it's not just that person going, it's that ripple effect through police officers, the ambulance drivers, the people that have to find these people in the state they're in, and then family, friends, colleagues. It's massive. It has a massive, one person taking their life impacts thousands. Grateful for things like this, where I can talk about my stuff and go, this is me and this is what I've been through, and people can go, wow. I don't expect, it's quite on the trauma scale, it's it's on the end of it, but it's but people can relate to it, which is the good thing. So yeah, I'm just grateful to wake up in the morning sometimes.
Yeah, it
If
sounds
I've not
to
wet the bed,
me.
that's a bonus.
Well, yeah, look, when we all discuss purpose, especially when it becomes, when it's about high performance, it sounds like you have a very powerful purpose.
Yeah, it's all about your why, isn't it? And it is, like I said, I've been on both ends of suicide. I've been the policeman that's found bodies and had to then go and deliver the message, the agony message, and work through that and do the liaison stuff. And then I've been on the other end where I've got British Transport Police phoning me up saying, I think we've got your brother. And you're like, oh, shit. Okay. So I've been on both ends of it. So the impact and the trauma is horrific. It's very, very real. So to be able to help reduce that is amazing, and I'm quite happy talking about that stuff, because I know it does have an impact. So it's
Yeah,
good. Not easy, but it's good.
and very much appreciate you sharing that. And I think that's a topic in itself, isn't it? So as we sort of start closing in on the end of this, and to completely contradict what presumably is some of the saddest moments in in your life, what makes you happy?
That's a really good question here, and I'm going to completely poo-poo this one, I'm afraid, because I've still got a dissociative condition as such. I'm extremely dissociated, so I don't really have emotions and feelings like you do. So
Wow.
I genuinely don't get what happy feels like, because I don't feel it. I'm very grey. I'm very flatlined in my emotions. I may come across as I'm quite up and down, but my emotional state is very, very flatlined. So I don't actually get happy. I cry. I get, I kind of get that, but I don't really get sad. I don't really get those kinds of emotions that you guys and girls have. So I don't really get that. So to say what makes me happy, I don't know, because I don't get happy. I don't know what it is. I enjoy driving my race car. I must admit, it's the one thing that does put a really big smile on my face, and it's something I'm very, very good at and I enjoy. So when all that comes together and I put in a good performance, I'm happy. I look back at my medals that I won over the years and I'm like, they're great, but I don't have that emotional, I don't remember it. So I don't know if that's my best race, that's my worst race. I don't know. But, seeing the kids do stuff is amazing. stuff like that. But I genuinely don't get happy, I'm afraid. So it's a bit of a bit of a crap answer, but
Well, I never
I don't
saw that
get it,
answer
I'm
coming,
afraid.
put it that way.
No, it's right. Yeah, I just people don't. People see me, and I'm, like I say, I'm always positive as much as I can be, and I'm always good, and I'm always bouncing. And it's like, but that emotional stuff, I don't get. I don't understand it. I don't have the labels that, I can't go. That's happy. That's sad. That's okay. That's this. That's that. So it's yeah, it's all grey for me, I'm afraid. So sorry about that.
No. It is what it is, isn't it? So look,
Yeah.
I want to sort of bring us back full circle, if I can, and sort of close off with reference again to teamwork, because high performance is very much an individual thing, but we've already discussed that most high performers, if not all, again, it is subjective and relative, but they all have a team around them that allow them to do their thing. In your world, what are 3 non-negotiable characteristics for someone working with you or in your team, recreationally or commercially?
Oh, geez. Wow. 3 non-negotiables. Bloody hell. I wish I'd have had some warning on that one. Oh, crikey. It's got to be, I guess, hard work. You've got to put the graft in. I'm not going to carry you, I guess. You've got to know your stuff as well. You've got to, if you're my number one engineer, you've got to know what you're doing, because I don't want that car breaking, I guess. I'm trying to think of it from my racing point of view. Yeah, it's things like when I blew an engine in my last weekend on the Friday night, last test session. The engine went pop and we were out racing less than 15 hours later, and the guys just mucked in 4:30 in the afternoon, found me a new engine, put it in. They finished about 11:30 midnight. We were back out 6-7 o'clock in the morning. So people to just get on and crack on is important, and it's just this is what we've got to do. So yeah, kind of, I guess, focused, determined, hard work. I like to have a laugh if I can. Makes life a bit easier. If people laugh at my jokes, I'm even more grateful. But yeah, so kind of hard work, graft, focused. That's good. Let's go do it. Let's have a good time. If we can have a good time along the way, that's a bonus. So yeah, kind of those 3 things, I guess. 4 things,
Yeah, well,
several things.
absolutely. Well, no, there's 4 or 5, but they're great. I mean, hard work, knowledge, resourcefulness, focus, and expertise.
Yeah.
I think is probably
Yeah.
really important, given the analogy that you used there.
Yeah.
So to finish, what's 2021 looking like for you, Andy? What are your expectations? What are you hoping from it?
I'm hoping to get back to getting in rooms with people. If I'm honest, I can't wait to be standing on a stage doing a corporate gig to a couple of thousand people. That'd be amazing. Continuing sharing my journey, sharing my story, talking. Hope to be back racing. Just hoping to be back at the end of May now, so the season will start then. So it'd be nice to be able to have spectators along to come and watch us race. Racing on TV as well, so it'd be nice to get a podium on the TV so I can do some live interviews, which would be great. So yeah, just getting back to a bit more normality, hopefully, whatever that's going to look like. I know it's not going to be the olden days, but it'd be nice to go and have a beer in a garden, things like that. But it is what it is. There's going to be a load more variables and stuff chucked at us that we'll deal with and cope with as and when they come. Different variants of this COVID stuff, who knows? But it's just head down, backside up. I'm just focusing on getting fit and ready to go racing in May. That's my focus. Business stuff is ticking along, hopefully, because I can't do much about that, so I don't tend to worry about that too much, because that'll come when it comes. So once we're allowed back in rooms, we'll be buzzing and ready to go and doing what we do best. So yeah, it's just getting ready for a new normal, hopefully.
Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I
Thank you for
know,
having
because
me,
we've had
buddy.
phone calls. We've had phone calls prior to this that you and I could get in a room when we're allowed and have a few beers and speak about all of this kind of stuff, and then some, for a load more time than we've got today. So
Yeah.
thank you for being transparent. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for sharing, some of your own journey. and thank you for hopefully inspiring listeners to crack on and be the best high performers they can. So cheers, Annie, and best of luck with 2021.
No, absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me, Simon. Really appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.